The Library of Babel is a vast grid of hexagonal chambers. Covering 4 of the 6 walls are 20 bookshelves. Grab a random book, and you'll find 410 pages of random letters. But what makes this library special is that every possible book is contained inside. In other words, everything that has been, will be, and will never be written can be found. Since this fictional collection of texts consists of every combination of letters and punctuation, inside are the secrets to the universe, the next 100 lottery numbers, and the true story of your death. But this concept could be applied to more than just books. For example, the Canvas of Babel is a website with every combination of pixels, and the library I'm gonna build today will take it one dimension higher. Inside my library will be everything you've ever built in Minecraft, as well as everything that no one has or will ever build, something I'll call the World of Babel. The basic concept is simple. Imagine you had 5 concrete blocks lined up in a row. Let's say they could either be black or white. These are our 2 different block types. Now, we'll assign each block either a 1 or a 0 based on its color. We can write this number down, and we end up with a single number that represents this build and this build only. If we then make a list of all the combinations of 1s and 0s, we have every possible build for this block set. Now let's open up the door to all 16 colors of concrete. Instead of 1s and 0s, let's use a letter that corresponds with the color. If we randomize this set of text, we can generate a new build. This will be the basic layout for each chamber of my library. There's gonna be a 4-way intersection in each room that lets you explore around. Then at the center of each chamber will be a unique build. The first problem is that it's impossible to fit a library this huge inside of Minecraft. If you wanted to just build every 16 by 16 by 16 structure possible, not even counting the room for the hallways, it would already take 10 to the 3,670 completely full Minecraft worlds. I tried my best to come up with an analogy for the size of this library, but I can't find anything remotely comparable. It's just that unfathomably big. So we're going to have to do a little bit of trickery to make it work. But before that, if you're looking to play Minecraft with friends, I would recommend using this video's sponsor, Indifferent Broccoli. I've been hosting servers for something like 6 years now, and trust me, I know how hard it can be to pick a host that isn't super laggy or way too complicated. Indifferent Broccoli makes that process easier with great customer service and a simple control panel that'll get your server up and running without any hassle. And for a service named after an uncaring vegetable, they sure seem to care a lot about their speed. Their servers are top of the line, so you can play without worrying about lag. There's also support for mods and data packs, letting you customize your game however you want. They're offering a 2-day free trial, which is something I've never seen any other server host do. I was able to make my account, and within 5 minutes, my server was already playable. Thanks again to Indifferent Broccoli for sponsoring, and make sure to check them out in the description. There's actually only going to be a single chamber built in this world, and at the end of each hall, I'm going to add a wall that will hide the fact that I'm secretly teleporting the player to the other side of the library, then generating the build. That way, we can keep the illusion of an infinite library with only one room. This same illusion could be used to make an infinite staircase. Just create a small part and teleport the player back down when they get too high. In the original story of the Library of Babel, there's a population of people who live inside of it. These people were born here, and everything they know about their universe comes from the observations they can make from inside. Each person living in the library has their own theories about how and why the library is the way it is. And a big question they have is whether or not the library is infinite. I mean, it would be impossible to cross it within a single lifetime. But those living inside notice 2 facts. The first is that only a finite number of symbols exist in each book, letters from A to Z, and some punctuation. The second is that no 2 books are the same, as far as they know. Under these conditions, there can't be infinite books, since only so many unique combinations exist of these characters. And so, even though they could never confirm it, they believe that the library can't be infinite. This is also true for our world of Babel. Walk far enough away in any direction, and you'll eventually find the last unique build. My world of Babel is only going to contain 16 by 16 by 16 builds. This means anything larger than this cube isn't going to be directly contained within the library. With that said, the number of possible builds becomes technically infinite when you consider one idea. Split a large build into 16 by 16 by 16 chunks, and now you can find that each part has already been built inside the library. So, in a sense, the library has every single build within it. So far, we've only been thinking about a single line of blocks for each build, but it's really straightforward to scale this. To make our build 2D, let's just label all of our blocks again and make one really long set of letters. And for 3D, we can do the same. To store these long strings of characters and bypass Minecraft's character limits, we can use a book and quill. which can hold over 100,000 characters. Okay, so with just 4,096 blocks and 16 colors to choose from, we already have 1 quintillion builds. But there's more than just 16 blocks. But problematically, there's only 26 letters. But we can do something about that. Let's start by adding every digit to our list of possible characters. Now, instead of using a single character to represent a block, we'll use 2. And this simple change gives us almost 1,300 values to work with. The first problem is that water just kind of flows everywhere. And even though it does make sense to have water since it's a possible block, I think that for the sake of flooding, I'm gonna have to remove the water. And this looks a lot better in my opinion. Also, I started this project as a Minecraft data pad. But Minecraft is absolutely terrible at handling big numbers. So instead, I'm now writing this as a server-side plugin. This means I can generate a new build with a single command. The next step is to start building the room around these builds so that this can start feeling like a library. The original story makes the library sound divine, writing that it can only be the work of a god. Each letter of the book is perfectly neat, deep black, and symmetrical. So for this reason, I want my library to look like the inside of a church or a cathedral. In my opinion, the Library of Babel is about absurdism. It's first and foremost about the absurdity of completeness, and the strange and unimaginable consequences of huge numbers and how we understand, or fail to understand, infinity. And at the same time, it's about the absurdity of living inside of the library, something that seems structured and purposeful, where books are neatly arranged in bookshelves of perfect chambers, but at the same time, the library is chaotic, uncaring, and unresponsive. No matter how hard you try to search for a meaningful book, it'll never come. You could understand how frustrating that would feel. In order to find your way throughout my infinite library, I'm going to implement a sort of search feature. It's going to be pretty much exactly what we've been doing, except in reverse. So if I want to find a build inside of the library, all I have to do is convert each block to its respective code and make a book out of it. Then, whatever the location of this book is in the library is where my build is going to be. Okay, so I'm going to build a house right here and I'm going to see where it is. So this is my house, and now I can teleport myself to exactly where the build is in the library. And here it is. And now I can move around the different chambers, and these are all the builds that are right next to it in the library. And here I found the same build but with a different roof. The search feature helps prove that any build is actually in the library. Knowing where the builds are means that you could theoretically walk from one build to another, but that would take years and years of walking. It occurred to me when building this that maybe I was putting in a lot more work than I needed to. If I can make the argument that I can build everything by putting together combinations of random builds, then why am I choosing to create 16 by 16 by 16 builds? It would work the same and maybe be a lot simpler if I just split the build into 8 by 8 by 8 pieces, or 2 by 2 by 2, or maybe even just 1 block pieces. I mean, if I have every single block, can't I just say that by combining them right, I've built everything in Minecraft? Well, you could argue that, but that would kind of ruin the fun. And this is similar to what Willard Van Orman Quine had to say about the Library of Babel. He thought about it this way. In the original library, each page can have a period, a space, or an alphabetic letter. Van Orman Quine suggests that we replace all of the pages with Morse code, so that each page is only made up of 2 characters. Then, split each book into 2, and remove all of the duplicates. Keep doing this until you end up with just 2 books, each with only 1 page. One of the books will have a dash, and the other will have a dot. This can be the whole library, and by the same logic with combining builds, this library has every single combination of words. Okay, so my library's actually finished now. I fixed all the code for the relative TPs to actually take you to the next room, and now it's all working. What I'm gonna do now is start exploring around and see what it's like inside of here. The people in the Library of Babel have found, over some great amount of time, a few books with some meaning inside of them. Some combination of words that make sense in English, or some pattern that seems too perfect to be a coincidence. But just by walking around for a little bit, it's easy to see that finding a build like this in this maze would take more than a lifetime of searching. One of my favorite facts about the Library of Babel is that there isn't actually a single meaningless book. Let's say you find this book, which is obviously complete gibberish. But since the library is complete, there exists a second book which writes the direct translation for this gibberish into something coherent. And further, this means that there is no combination of text that the library hasn't already seen and translated it into every other word of every possible language. Like these books, the builds in my library aren't completely soulless. Some generate with sniffer eggs and hatch into mobs, others spawn with TNT next to a power block, causing some of the build to be destroyed. You could imagine some builds could generate with intricate contraptions inside. And of course, the builds could contain pixel art. But obviously, you'll have to do a ton of searching to find anything close to that. Okay, so I have to be honest about something. The library isn't complete. Even though the builds can generate with every block, I've decided not to add variations of blocks, like the many rotations of stairs, powered redstone components, or all of the combinations of text on a sign. And while a complete library is possible, for now, it's big enough to explore for the rest of your life. And come to think of it, I finally thought of a good analogy to describe the size of the library. Take all of the atoms in the universe. All of the ones that make up you, the planet, and the stars billions of light years away. Now imagine that each of these atoms all suddenly became their own new universes, each one of them complete with just as many atoms as our own. And now again, imagine all of the atoms in each of these new universes also became new universes. And now repeat this 44 more times, and finally, there would almost be as many atoms in all of those universes as there are builds in this library. So you should probably start searching now.